In 1960, a film that was based on the play from 1939 called The Birthday Gift was released to theaters. That film was known as North to Alaska. It was directed by Henry Hathaway and starred John Wayne, along with Stuart Granger, Ernie Kovacs, Fabian, and Capucine. It tells the story of Sam McCord, played by John Wayne, and George Pratt, played by Stuart Granger, and how they strike it rich in their gold mine in Alaska. You see, finally George has enough money to marry his old sweetheart Jenny, a girlfriend that he hasn't seen in 3 years. So Sam ends up boarding a ship, and he heads to Seattle to pick up a lot of heavy equipment that the partners need for their mine, and also to bring back Jenny. When he gets there, he finds that Jenny hasn't been patiently waiting for George. She's already married another man. After finding this out, Sam heads to the local hen house, where he's flirting with all the loose ladies there. Then all of a sudden, he meets a French woman named Michelle Bonet. This is played by Capucine. Her beauty and her accent captivates Sam, and he thinks that this girl might be the perfect woman to help George forget Jenny. He then asks her to travel back to Alaska with him, and she agrees, because the truth be told, she actually likes Sam. And besides, he does own part of a gold mine and has boatloads of money. Once they arrive in Alaska, Michelle finds herself with 3 male headaches. A 17-year-old named Billy, played by Fabian. Now, Billy works for Sam and George and is immediately captivated and infatuated with Michelle. After George spends a few minutes with Michelle, he indeed forgets about Jenny. But the problem is, Sam is the one that Michelle wants. And Sam has feelings for her too, though he's really slow to admit it. In the meantime, there's an awful lot of claim jumping and cross-filing going on in the mines around Nome. In fact, someone has filed on the mine owned by Sam and George, and they quickly suspect a local shyster named Frank Cannon is behind that. And that role is played by Ernie Kovacs. The main focus of the film is the comedy that ensues because of the men as they vie for the affections of Michelle Bonet, while she tries to decide what to do about it all. The film ends with a riotous brawl in the mud-filled streets of Nome. This film marked the only Western that Capucine did, and she was 32 at the time that she filmed this. And she had already enjoyed a successful modeling career. Now, she's completely stunning in this movie. She's absolutely beautiful. And she's not a bad actress either, to be so inexperienced at the time. Later on, she went on to film 36 films and 17 television productions. In 1957, the producer, Charles Feldman, spotted her while she was modeling in New York City. Feldman immediately put her under contract at $150 a week. He then took her to Hollywood to learn English and study acting. In 1958, she signed a 7-year contract with Columbia Pictures, and she auditioned for the role of Feathers in Rio Bravo, but she didn't get it. She landed her first speaking role in the film Song Without End in 1960. The people in Hollywood had a saying that you could always teach a girl how to act, but nobody could teach a girl how to look like a princess. You've got to start with a girl who looks like a princess from the beginning. And that's what she does. She is absolutely beautiful. She stated a few times that every time she got in front of the camera, what she would do to encourage her acting skills, she would think of an attractive man that she was meeting for the first time. And she would make herself feel that the guy wasn't interested in her at all. So she would do everything she could to spike his interest in her. She said that when she went along in the scenes and she warmed up, she got much better in her roles. After the relationship with Charles Feldman ended, she ended up meeting William Holden in the early 1960s. And they were in a relationship for about 2 years before she cut this relationship off because of Holden's increasing alcoholism. After that affair ended, she and Holden remained really close friends until his death in 1981. He even left her about $50,000 in his will. On March 17, 1990, at age 62, Capucine jumped to her death from her 8th-floor apartment in Switzerland. She had lived there for 28 years, and she had been suffering from some kind of illness, and the depression that this illness brought along complicated her life. Her neighbors said that she led a completely reclusive life with her 3 cats, and she hardly ever left her apartment, spending most of her time just reading. Now, if you think about it, Alaska was only admitted to the United States as the 49th state in 1959, and there was a whole bunch of news about this at the time, so it made it a real popular choice for a movie. The movie spent a long time in pre-production. During that time, it also had the name or working title of Go North. You see, it was delayed by writers' strikes and also by John Wayne's involvement in making The Alamo. Shooting on North to Alaska didn't start until May of 1960. Gary Crosby was reported to have been cast as Granger's brother, and this was up until the point that he was replaced by Fabian, who had just turned into a film star with Hound Dog Man. The studio really felt that Fabian might attract a younger movie audience with his supporting role in the film. Most of the film was shot in Point Mugu, California. The Wayne and Granger honeymoon cabin scenes were filmed along Steaming Hot Creek near volcanic Mammoth Mountain. You can see Mount Morrison appearing in the background in many of the views. Filming started without a completed script, and the movie ended up being heavily improvised. John Wayne really kind of got irritated at the studio because they were supposed to finish the script and have it ready. They had almost a year to put it together, and they hadn't done it. Then the writer's strike came along and caused it to be even more complicated than it was. Fabian really enjoyed working with John Wayne. He felt like that what you saw was what you got from Old Duke. He stated numerous times that he was absolutely incredible and that he was very nice to him. There's an important scene that Fabian has with Capucine where she's being filmed in a realistic no-foam bathroom scene. While Fabian serenades her, Fabian's completely infatuated with her. This scene kind of sneaked through in the film nearly 3 years before Jane Mansfield officially broke the mainstream nudity ban. Although she's partially hidden while taking this bath, it's still a pretty provocative scene. Now, the movie also has a very famous song that goes along with it, and it's also called North to Alaska. Almost everybody remembers this song, even if you didn't grow up in this time frame. Johnny Horton recorded it, and it was sung over the opening titles of the film. Sadly, Johnny Horton died in an automobile accident just shortly after the song was released. John Wayne was told during the preparation of the film that director Richard Fleischer didn't want to make the movie because John Wayne was in it. You see, initially, he was pinned for the role as director before Henry Hathaway got the job. The actual reason that he didn't want to do the movie was because of the screenplay. He just didn't think it was good enough, and it probably wasn't well enough completed for him to judge it. You see, John Wayne took this role without ever reading a script. Sometime later, in Madrid, Spain, in a hotel lobby, John Wayne ran into the director Fleischer, and he asked him why he refused to direct him in this movie. Fleischer went into the explanation and the truth about it, and John Wayne seemed to understand his reasoning. But 14 years later, when producer Hal Wallace proposed that Fleischer direct the movie Rooster Cogburn with John Wayne and Katharine Hepburn, John Wayne told him absolutely not, that he wouldn't work with Fleischer. So somehow these actions by the director had ticked the old Duke off to the point that he didn't want to work with him again. Now, just one final little point of trivia that I find kind of funny is that in the final scene, the fight scene, where they're all out in the street in a complete mud bath, and keep your eye on John Wayne, you can notice him for just a second without the wig that he had so commonly begun to wear after his hair started to thin. As he falls backwards after being punched, you can see a quite bald John Wayne head. Take a look at this movie. It's a different type of John Wayne movie, and it's pretty enjoyable. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.